You ready?
Ready, set, and
All
action.
right, welcome to the Gear Garage. This is a show about whitewater things. And today we're trying a new format for the show. We're going to screen share. I'm here with my friend Aaron Cavignolo. Welcome, Aaron.
Great to be here, Zach. Hey, Zach,
Aaron's in
are we
Hawaii.
are we going to be on the screen too, or just the paper? You're not going to have our beautiful faces on there too.
Hey, Aaron, ask me that before we start recording the show. Uh, where I think our faces are on here. I'm not sure,
I
but
don't think
hopefully,
they are. They aren't on there because I can see what you're sharing on your screen, and I'm not on that screen.
okay, that's even better that you can't see our faces. So we're gonna go through this guide quiz, and I put out a guide quiz a few weeks ago, and it's a beta quiz. It's me trying things out, trying questions out. I'm trying to form a really nice baseline quiz, and the idea with the quiz is that it doesn't fit every situation everywhere, but it's just general river guide knowledge that it's good to test people on. And so there may be some questions. Some questions are controversial, and some answers are controversial. And I think the good thing about quizzes is that it's an opportunity to learn. And so, you don't always give a quiz just to test people's knowledge. Sometimes you give it to see how people where they're at, and then it's the conversations afterwards where the real learning comes. And so I'm excited to talk to my friend Aaron because Aaron is an expert river guide who's guided all over the world from class 1 to class 5 for a bunch of companies. And we're just going to kind of share our thoughts about some of these questions as we go through them. You ready to do this, Aaron?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first question is, when is a good time to deploy a throw bag from a raft? And you can't really see the answers that good here, but the potential answers would be, I think they were anytime you have a swimmer, and never was one.
Zach, if you put your little pointer on the responses, the questions will come up.
Okay, got it. So one
There
of
you
them
go.
was anytime you have a swimmer, anytime you have a swimmer you can't reach with a paddle, never, or never unless there's a high probability of be saving someone from severe injury or death. And there's even one, then people could write their own in. Like one answer was, this is total rubbish written by a fool who has never guided a whitewater boat. That's me. Or here's one, and people went on and on about their own thoughts. And there's a lot of, there's gray area here. But Aaron, in the questions, in the answers they came up with, which one would you go with?
Well, I mean, I think I'm gonna go with what everyone else, what pretty much everyone there is saying, the
Yeah.
64%.
Yep. Yep. And I think a lot of people, some people put, let's see, if you can't reach them with a paddle, I think, do you agree, Aaron? It's just not good form to throw a throwback from a raft because people do get tangled up in them, and it's actually caused fatalities. So you only want to use a throw bag if you're saving somebody from maybe a fatality.
And I think there's the never and always are things to avoid.
Yeah.
Never do this, always do this. Yeah, you never throw a throwback. Well, no, that's silly. And you always do this, or like never throw a throwback from a raft that's not tied to shore. In general, that's a great principle. I'm sure
Yeah.
people could come up with situations, and I've heard of situations where, okay, yeah, that made sense there. Yeah, an upside down gear boat that's floating downstream, and the guy's on top of it, and he threw me a throwback, and we wrapped around a tree to get the boat to shore. Yeah, that makes
Hmm.
sense to throw a throwback from a boat, but that's not to a swimmer and whatever. I mean, we're getting
Yeah.
down into like the little details. So I think like we got to take a step back and look big picture and really just think, if you didn't answer the way that majority of people did, if you have a really good rationale, that's cool. But if you're just like, yeah, no, dude, throwback should be the first option, I think most people agree that throwback should not be your first option.
Yep. Yep. And people have died being thrown back from a boat because they got tangled in the rope. So you have to
Yeah.
keep that in the back of your head.
And yeah, and I'm just gonna take a step further. And people lose throw bags on rivers. And how many bags have we seen like dangling around the river? And it's all sketchy because it got stuck underneath a rock and like,
Yep.
great.
Yep. Cool. The next question is, a 2-to-1 mechanical advantage system requires how many pulleys to minimize friction? How many pulleys does it take, Aaron?
Well, I think this is a stupid question, Zach.
Why?
No one uses 2-to-1 mechanical advantages. Only idiots
I,
use 2-to-1 mechanical advantages.
I do. I mean, somebody wrote that in here, I think. I mean, if you cannot safely throw got a bag in a guide, a boat, and have the bag pull, I can't. I mean, if you can't write safely correctly, if you can't, then it's hard to listen to. No company should hire you. I don't know what this answer is, but you agree the answer is one pulley, right?
Well, yeah, 1 point for 2-to-1. Yes,
Two
totally.
to one, and I could have said 3-to-1, which is more commonly known. With that,
Now, Zach, there's one. I mean, some people may have a second pulley just as a change of direction.
Yeah. It doesn't, but it only requires one pulley. Right.
Yeah.
And so keeping this
Yeah,
simple. I'm trying to
requires.
keep it
Yeah,
simple.
yeah, there you go.
Yep.
That's a good point. That requires. Yeah, that's a good one.
With
Yeah,
a lot
okay,
of these questions, you have to read the question. It really helps to read the question because there's some tricks in here. All right, let's move on. After you flip, you should immediately count your passengers, get on the upside down raft and count your passengers, get on the upside down raft and start pulling passengers in your boat, or take a deep breath and relax.
Now the tape of deep breath, I feel like that one kind of that's that's a good point. You always need to like take a breath, take a second, and just like
Yep.
regroup. And
Yep.
I you know, and so that's that one kind of I think that's a terrible answer, because I feel like the one up above the most people answered, get on top of your raft and start counting heads. Yeah, that makes sense. But it also makes sense that hey, take a deep breath, just chill
Yep.
out, man. How many times,
Yep.
you know? So
And you can
yeah.
see how like, a ton of people answered that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, and so I think I would remove that answer and put a different answer in for that one.
Well, when I rewrote the question, I rewrote it after you flip, take a deep breath. I think I said after you flip,
nice,
look out
nice.
and look out for your own safety, and then do this next. So I took that out as an answer and included that as an assumed in the next in the question of the new test.
Nice.
So I learned a lot. Like looking at the answers, I learned a lot about like how people were thinking. And yeah, I mean, you should take a deep breath and relax. There's the guy who's kind of aggro who wrote, depends on the situation. Is a pull drop? Is the water moving fast under the rapid? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it does depend on the situation. Everything does. We're just doing our best to like create some basic standards.
In general, I mean, in general, it's easiest and best just to climb on top and flip it back over. I mean, on almost any river.
Yeah.
Like,
yep. So a good standard is get on that boat as fast as you can. Right. Look out for your safety. Get on that boat, and then make sure all your people are alive and exist, and you can find them. And then yeah, I'll usually do a reflip and pull everybody back in then. But
and Zach, I'm gonna back up here and say that other guy's comments like, yeah, it does depend, but like, tell me what is the situation where you'd rather not hop up on top and flip the boat back over? I mean, I would love for that person to like make a comment at the bottom. What would be the situation where you wouldn't want to climb on top and flip it back over pretty quickly?
I mean, here's some more answers people left. Debate if there's an immediate risk to yourself. Like, I'm not going to debate that. I mean, you just kind of know that, but that makes sense.
Well, what's going to be the immediate risk? You're in the water. Aren't you better off up on top of the raft? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Shore first? I
Somebody else wrote, communicate with other guides' boats. This might influence counting passengers. Like, again, it's hard to communicate when you're just, if you're just
I know, because
shore.
you're a victim at that point. You gotta start the recovery.
Swim it to shore on most rivers. That's definitely incorrect. I'm not sure if. Hopefully, somebody's joking around. Get on top of a raft if possible. Count passengers. That's basically what's one of the answers. Save yourself. That's just somebody messing with me. Let's move on. We kind of did that one pretty good. This one was pretty controversial. Safety talk should take about 10 minutes, 11 minutes, 43 seconds, about 20 minutes. It doesn't matter as long as it takes to cover everything. As long as it takes to cover everything. And then it really doesn't matter as long as the passengers are entertained. Did pretty well too. What's the answer here, and what do you think?
Well, I think I know you're going for 10 minutes, and so that's why I gave that answer, because I was like, Zach wants 10 minutes is the answer.
Well, I don't want.
I'm gonna say it really doesn't matter how long it takes. Is totally false. It definitely matters how long the talk takes. You don't just take forever. And I think that's the problem with that last one. Even though most people answered that, and it's right in one way, it's like, yeah, you need to take the time to cover everything and give it to people to answer questions. But we've all seen those safety talks where the people yawn on for an hour, don't say much more, and just like everyone's spaced out, no one's listening. And I think that's what you were trying to get to with that answer. And so I don't know if there's a way to rework it, but like, no,
I reworded it.
Just to say, it really. How long it takes. I think you just said it doesn't matter how long it takes to do your safety talk. And if you left it at that, I think that would be a really poor answer. Just the first part.
In the new quiz, I wrote safety talk should cover everything and take about this long. So I took that as an answer in there. But
I think they're right, though, Zach. 10 minutes, like no one, even Mark, when Mark was doing his, no way he was doing 10 minutes, was he? Did he get all done in 10 minutes?
Yeah, you can do a safe talk in 10 minutes pretty easy. 10 minutes is a long time. Yeah, you can do it in 10 minutes pretty easy. I mean, it depends.
Because then if you're not including how to paddle, and if you're not including like getting your life jacket on, the safe for your life jacket, and all that other stuff, then you might be able to.
You're not including putting people's jackets on, right? They have their jackets on. I don't think you're covering individual paddle strokes like forward paddle, back paddle. It's the safety talk. It's the basics. Like there's a paddle. I call that a paddle talk. So if you're including putting people's life jackets on, this is just how long does it take to talk to people with words, things to look out for. And even let's say 10 minutes isn't possible. I think it is. It should be a goal. At a minimum, you should be going for shorter, and you can get shorter through practice.
And I think if you look at the answers down below, Zach, a lot of people were hitting on that, as concise as possible while still covering everything.
Yep.
Yeah, as short as possible. Like, I think people had the right idea, ensuring all critical information is retained by passengers. Yeah.
There's the aggro guy who left some aggro answers. Any believing, first of all, it's hard to take people seriously that can't make complete sentences, but I mean, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Any believing a life-saving safety talk can be given and digested by people in 10 minutes needs to be fired. I believe that, and I own the company, so I need to be fired. I don't know. And then as long as it takes to cover everything, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and as concise as possible. Yep, different on different rivers, absolutely. Depends on river flow, crew, and passengers. That's definitely true. Depends on the setting, day guiding, multi-day. I seem to think that for a safety talk, the day trip talk is really close to the multi-day talk, because in the multi-day talk, you're not covering. It's on river stuff. It's not about how to go to the bathroom or like where to drop, how to eat.
Yeah, I actually think that's a good point, Zach, too, is that you definitely don't want to include that with your safety talk, because then your talk's taking way too long.
You'll lose everybody.
And you're better off doing a couple of shorter talks.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like talking about the life jackets as part of the safety talk. When you give people the life jackets, I think that's the time to discuss the life jackets. When they come on over, you guys, these are the life jackets, here's the deal, blah, 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 and then we put them on. And then you're done talking about them.
In my talk, I think the life jackets are so important. I'm like, hey, I'd mentioned you have to keep it on. Like, this is staying on you. I don't dive into them, but I'm like,
I talked about. See anyone take it off? I've never had that problem. I mean, and like if they are, they're taking off to like, they're okay, can I take it off right now? My shirt.
Or loosening up. I
talk and no matter what you say, people are going to loosen up though.
But I get it. But you need to do your best to make sure that we're in this equipment. And so I make sure that they're always wearing their helmet, life jacket, shoes. That's like your uniform. You're wearing that on the river. I think they need to hear that from the leader, so that at least there's some strong, somebody strong saying do this, and it's more likely to do it.
I guess just on the river, a lot of the rivers I've worked, no one would even think about going without their life jacket.
Yeah, no, I know. But
it's interesting, and that might be more important on easier rivers, like on a class 2 run. It might be more important to emphasize that than on like a class 5 run. People are usually gripped. They're not like, yeah, dude, I gotta loosen my vest up. It's too tight. They're like, tighten that thing down tighter.
I'm thinking about the Rogue a little bit. Obviously, if you're guiding Cherry Creek, maybe you don't need to remind them to wear their life jacket. But on the Rogue, I need to be like, hey guys, like we need to wear our life jacket the whole time, just so you know.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting when you think. Yeah. And it is river dependent, like we said. There's a lot of variation. Cool.
Absolutely. So it's about 10 minutes as the answer. I think it is. We get this river dependent. It depends on a lot of things.
I'm gonna say 15. I'm gonna say 15. I can't agree with you.
You need to get your safety talk dialed in. Then you need to work on it. But
I think the best safety talks I've ever seen are the Cherry Creek safety talks. And
see, the difference is on Cherry Creek, people want the information. They realize
you need to give it to them.
Well, and they want to receive it. But if they're
scared and they're shitting their pants.
So they'll listen to 20 minutes. Whereas if you're guiding the South Fork of the American, they don't really want the information. They're not scared. They just want to get through the safety talk. So if you go past 10 minutes, you could lose them. And there's less stuff to cover.
I'm going to say that I think there's a group of people in the South Fork who don't want the safety talk, and there's a group that does. I think the group that does, those scared people, they are going to listen.
Yeah, but I think that somebody told me recently, if people want information, they'll listen to 20 minutes. Yeah. If they don't want information, they'll listen to 5 minutes. So I'm splitting that. It's like it's sort of in between. Like people kind of want the information, they kind of don't. You definitely don't have them for 20 minutes. And you can make your safety talks more concise. We got to move on here, and we're going to beat this one to death. Another answer, this is a good one, as short as possible, ensuring all critical information is retained by passengers. That's huge. They didn't just hear it, they retained it.
Yeah.
More is not better. I love that.
That's a great, I mean, I think that says pretty much what we've been trying to say right there. Better than we.
This one I kind of like 2 minutes, how to stay in the boat, how to keep your feet up and when to swim to shore. I mean, that's kind of some critical stuff there. So, I mean, that's, focus on the take-home points, don't stand up, offensive, defensive, swim position, don't get, I can't see this whole thing, but yeah, it's good. About 15 minutes.
In the little details, I bet it says.
Somebody wrote in about 15 minutes. That's your answer, Aaron. So, doing pretty good. Let's move on. The most important part of a safety talk is, it's all equally important, wearing PPE and avoiding foot entrapments. PPE is your life jacket, helmet, all that stuff. How to paddle as a team, what to do when you swim, no drugs or alcohol. What do you think, Aaron? Is it all?
I think that's river dependent. I think if you're doing trips on what's that, like on that section on the Stanislaus near Oakdale, the no drugs and alcohol is the most important aspect of it. I say no drugs and alcohol. Wear your life jacket.
Yeah. No, I get that. But again, we're doing our best to cover all of rafting. We can't be, this isn't like for every river, and we get that with the quiz, like things are different by extremes of river. But I'm going to claim in general, the most important part is wearing your life jacket, wearing your shoes, wearing your wetsuit, and avoiding foot entrapments. I mean, that's most of safety right there. Like, do you agree on Cherry Creek, if somebody swims mushroom with their life jacket on, they keep their feet up, they're going to come out at the bottom?
Yeah, but I would say the most important part of our safety talks up there is stay in the boat.
We sort of just had this debate earlier today on the podcast when we went over this quiz. Is it more important to stay in the boat, or more important what happens when you fall out of the boat?
It's more important to have the mindset, if that boat's upright, you're in it.
But
if you don't fall out, you're not gonna. Too many people have fallen out. I've seen this all the time where I thought the boat was gonna flip, so I fell out. You're just like, Aaron, and then they take a wicked swim.
I think for those of you out there that are like, Aaron Cavagnolos, who are badass guides and can keep people in your boat, that's awesome. But when you think about there being 5,000 boats on the South Fork in a weekend, there's not 200 guides or whatever it is, 1,000 guides who can keep everybody in their boat. And so
Zach, hold on. Before you go down this long diatribe about 2,000 people, how often do rafts flip?
Not very often.
Okay, so not very often. So if the raft is upright, have the mindset that you're in it would keep most people out of the water, because it's very rare that boats flip.
So I think that's assuming everybody's a really good guide. You can teach the guests how to
even if you're a bad guide, if you just sit down and sit your butt in the bottom of the boat and bounce down the river, if you just get down the bottom, you're probably not going to fall out.
People are falling out of boats. That's just a given.
Because they're trying to be cool and paddle hard, or they're not paying attention and they hit a rock and they fall out. That's where most people fall out, in the flat water or at the top of the raft.
But if you look at safety, the most important things for safety are wearing your life jacket and not having your foot entrapped. And also cold water immersion, like having the proper dress. So anyway, if you look at the answers, let's just look at the data, Aaron. The
data says it's all equally important, Zach. That's what the data says.
This is a trick question, because it says the most important part of a safety talk. It can't be everything, and these aren't equally important, right? Like, that was a trick question. So
let's look at the data.
So anyway, I'm going to claim that it's not equally important. I'm going to claim that wearing your life jacket and keeping your feet up is more important than other.
Maybe you could do a prioritized list of like important things and say what's going from most important to least important.
So for me though, here the most important thing is wearing your life jacket and keeping your feet up, right? That's the most important to me.
Yeah, but you could do something else, like wearing your life jacket, keeping your feet up, blah 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 blah. Another one would be like drink water. Don't pee on the whatever shore.
So you're saying put like, I just think that there's no learning there. It's obvious that wearing your life jacket is more important than peeing on shore. It's obvious that's more important than drinking water. I want it to create questions that are like tough and create discussion, like we just had.
Well, I mean, You want questions? Okay. So you want questions that there have ambiguous answers that people aren't sure about.
Aaron, you gotta stop giving me a hard time on this. What we gotta move on.
Oh, is that what you just said?
No, I do want I want them not ambiguous, but I want them tough. And I think that I think the data supports it, that wearing a PPE and avoiding foot entrapments is more important than what to do when you swim. Now I get that there's the data also says people didn't read the question well. That one, of course.
But maybe people feel like it's a trick question, Zach. Maybe you're one of those teachers, huh?
So I'm gonna stick by this one. And I hopefully, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you're right. Maybe it is to like not fall out of the boat. Or no, so or how to paddle as a team.
How often do people drown or get foot entrapped when they're in the raft?
Never, but my point, Aaron, you guys stop messing with me. My point here, Aaron, is that you can't guarantee the people that stay in the boat. Now with Aaron Cavagnolo, badass guide, yes.
No, I'm not saying you can guarantee it, but I will say I think that's a really critical aspect of the safety talk is discussing that and having that mindset you're going to stay in that boat no matter what. Because when you do that, people are much more likely to stay in the boat. It's amazing the difference. That's why I emphasize it so much. And I don't talk about wearing your life jacket. Like, I don't even discuss it. Like, it's not like, oh, you guys need to wear your life jacket. It's like, dude, if we're having to talk about that, we got other problems.
But this isn't life jacket. This is life jacket, helmet, wetsuit. This is the whole safety equipment. The safety equipment, and I think that there's people that don't want to wear. All right, we're going to move on. We're beating this one to death. Although I like always reading some of these really quick. Here we go. Depends on the river flow, crew and passengers. Of course, it depends. Depends on the river system and type of trip. Absolutely. Depends on the river you're on. But it does depend.
It's true.
But,
dude, how much foot entrapments are you going to have in the Grand Canyon?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yep.
Now, up in your little creeks, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Actually, no, you can't even there because there's not enough water. You stand up.
As an owner, what I fear the most when I look at hurting people, what I fear the most is somebody like dying because they weren't wearing a life jacket, or they die because of cold water immersion, or a foot entrapment that I can't control that's hard to rescue. I don't worry.
What about strainers?
I worry with strainers too, but not as much as those other things.
Really?
Yep, not as much, because on the rivers we do, there aren't many of them, and the guides know them, and they're paying attention to them. Where like if you fall out and stand up in the river, we can't control you standing up in the river. Like we can worry about trees. We know the trees are. Let's avoid the trees. But if somebody falls out unexpectedly, I want to make sure they're not standing up in the river. I can't control that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's move on. In a controlled raft situation where your clients are safely on shore, in what order should you attempt pulling techniques? The answer is obviously strong arm pull, tube deflation, rope pull, vector pull, Z drag. That's by the data. We don't need to go through all the different possibilities. Somebody wrote tube deflation should not be considered before Z drag. Hire professionals, not fools. So let's talk about this, Aaron.
I love it. You need to have that person on your podcast, Zach, and have an interview with them, because I don't want to be part of that. I just want to hear their perspective on running rivers.
Agro guy, if you're willing to contact me, I'd love to talk to you more. And
it'd be really fun to hear agro guys.
So anyway, this is basically strong arm pull is just pulling on the boat, no ropes. Tube deflation is deflating tubes, then just putting a rope on it, then a vector pull, which I've never used successfully, but whatever, I'm fine with it being there. And then Z drag last, which is basically saying use the most dangerous thing, like go from safest to most dangerous, which is what this list is. Aaron, I know you're a big fan of tube deflation. Tell us about that one.
I'm in agreement. It's not fun to agree with you, Zach. It's not as interesting. But I'm just gonna throw some out there. Who the hell's used a vector pull? Really? You've got enough tension on the rope that a vector pull works well for you? I mean,
I've never seen it work. People have told me it's worked for them. I've actually used it. We were lowering a boat down a cliff and got a boat stuck in a tree on a cliff, and we used a vector pull in that example to get it unstuck.
I've kind of move it across so it'll drop down, maybe.
No, we had that pull up. So it was a complicated mess. I don't want to get into it, but I don't know of any good examples of a vector pull working in a wrap, but I'm fine with it being a standard. Like I disagree with it being there personally, based on my experience, but I'm okay with it being, because I think generally people agree that's where it should go.
And I don't feel like people are gonna get that hurt messing with the vector pole.
Yeah, vector pole is way safer than Z-rig. So like, why not? Right. But Aaron, just take a second to talk about your thoughts about tube deflation. I feel like you agree that it should be up high on the list. You disagree with
Oh
my
yeah. I mean yeah. I mean yeah. I've gone off on that enough times. I've just said like back when we were working on the Tuolumne, we had a lot of success with tube deflation. Like when we first started out, we started using it. I think I lost track at around 75 or 75 rafts, and through 75 rafts, all but 2 of them we got off with tube deflation. Now I think the key component that to say is though they were all more of the the Avon NRS style tubes where the tubes, it's quartered rather than the Sotar style. I didn't have the same success with tube deflation with the Sotar style. It didn't work as well.
Oh, because they're not quartered. Yeah, they're in weird spots.
Yeah,
I
did.
Right.
I was not
that.
In the 2 times where we had to use ropes from shore were both Sotars. And maybe it's just my lack of experience doing it with that type of tube deflation. Maybe somebody else can chip in like, what's the secret to tube deflation on Sotars? But I definitely, the quarter, it works so well. Just going for that, to reduce force on whatever side you want to reduce the force on, deflate the tube that's out of the water on that side. So,
yeah, that makes sense. No, I've never used tube deflation. I don't think, maybe once, so I don't have a lot of experience with it. But I imagine it's not something I think I would want people without experience doing, like just randomly deflating tubes. Like you kind of have to be an experienced person with wraps before you start deflating tubes.
Zach, that's why I like teaching though, because I feel like if you can give them a couple of fundamentals, don't deflate any tube that's underwater ever. Okay, don't deflate the floor ever because the floor is half underwater. And then after that, you really aren't getting yourself into trouble. If you're just deflating tubes that are out of the water, you're not making things worse, and you're going to change the forces on the boat. So
I mean, it depends. If it's a fully rigged gearboat, you got to be careful deflating too many tubes because the boat might sink after you get it off.
Now, if you just do 2 of them, I mean, your maximum you're going to do is 2 tubes because 2 of them are underwater. And the floor,
but if it's a fully loaded gearboat.
We've all put holes. You put a hole that's gone across the baffle.
All right, we're on an aside. A lot of people put different things, some different orders. It depends, of course. But in general, I feel like most people agree this is pretty straightforward.
What is that? Go down to none of that. In no such. Go to in no such.
None of that, and no such
order.
Recovery
tactics between short and wrap or downstream sea anchor tug.
Okay, whatever. I mean, I've seen a sea anchor tug is basically throwing a bucket in the water and having a pull. I've seen that work, so I'm not like I'm sure it works. But yeah, whatever. That's probably that feels like an aggro guy answer.
Yeah.
The strongest Avenger.
All cap locks there. That was pretty crazy. Oh, strongest Avenger.
Strongest Avenger. Who do you got, Aaron?
I think I voted for Hulk. You said strongest.
The strongest. I mean, Captain Marvel is overpowered. She's just like she's.
Well, she's got the best powers, but she's not the strongest. Like this is reading for understanding. Then reading for understanding. Who is the strongest superhero? So, no, I mean the Hulk is the strongest superhero.
Okay, I mean the Hulk. The data agrees with you.
Yes.
So all right,
Captain Marvel. Yeah, she's got the most crazy powers for sure. We didn't say who's the most powerful. We didn't say who's got.
Okay.
We said who's the strongest.
I made a mistake on that one. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to actually change the question to the physically strongest Avenger, right? Just to make sure no, I mean, I can go to Hulk. That sounds good. Because you're right. Captain Marvel's more powerful.
Yeah. All right. Are we going to look at any of the responses? You will talking trash.
Yeah. I mean, there's not, oh, here we go. Movies or comic books, movies, Captain Marvel, comic books, Thor. Yeah, that's a good answer. It's pretty legit. Don't know Avengers. Well, that's your problem. Is it Captain Marvel? But her powers are so fucking contrived. It's ridiculous. Not the girl power.
Whoa.
Ouch.
Wow.
That's brutal. Anyway, let's move on. In the event that you're faced with a foot entrapment scenario that's life-threatening, what is your first priority? It's pretty straightforward here. Like, get them an airway. Make sure they can breathe. I think most people agree. Whatever you can do to keep an airway open, that's basically what we just said. So that one's easy. This one's pretty controversial. Where should the safety gear and first aid kit be located? And Aaron, I say it depends. Actually, I was for most of my career a last boat guy, and Mark Hurst pointed out to me that the trip leader is usually in the lead, and you probably want the gear of the trip leader because they typically have the most experience. You're making a lot of assumptions here, like the trip leader has the most experience. So I'm a fan of it depends. It depends on a lot of things.
Yeah, I'll say, yeah, there's value, and I think the safety gear and the first aid kit are two different. But yeah, I've run them all over the place on different trips, and they all had good reasons. And I think if you discuss it and have a rationale for why you're taking it where you're taking it, and the second more important thing is that everyone knows where it is. That's another key factor. So,
yeah, that is key. So
having said that, on a 7-boat trip, having all your safety stuff in the first boat, probably not your best bet.
Yeah, but I think that I think Mark likes in the first boat, but he's thinking the first boat can see the last boat in his tight boat order.
Yeah, and he talks about
like
places where like a lot of the guys are just like, not very good, and you got like like your lead guy's like really on, and everyone else is pretty weak.
And you wouldn't give it to a weak guy in the back. So I mean, here the person with the highest first aid and rescue certification. Yeah, but is certification first aid more important than experience? Would you give it to the person, the former ski patroller with basic first aid, or the woofer? Like, I think that's one. No, it does not depend. This is agri guide. The guide with the most. It really bothers me if people can't spell. The most experience should be the last boat with rescue gear. I think that this is why. Yeah, this is why I don't. I just at this point when I was reading agri guy's answers, the most experienced guide should not be the last boat. Like, you typically want that person in the front showing people the way down. Typically, it does depend. You don't always put the most experienced guy in the back. Like, so first aid kit.
I'm going to say, I feel like in general, you want the most experienced guide in the front.
Yep, I agree with that. Sometimes,
or
second. Aaron, maybe second, because if the first person flips, then you want somebody really good to go get them.
And I will agree. I'll say the second boat, you have to have someone really good in the second boat, particularly at high water. I think for high water in particular, that's a key. Someone who can run tight right behind the person. But I just look at like the last boat in general.
You want a good boater back there because they may have to deal with something.
Yeah, it's nice to have someone experienced, but usually you want your trip leader out. Your trip leader is usually your most experienced. You want them out front, so they're setting the pace. If something happens, they know to pull over. Like, everything you're coming at is pretty much coming from, like, if there's a wrap around the corner, you want your lead boat to be like, oh, we got to pull over. There's ropes in the water or this and that. Like, anything out of the ordinary, they're ready to pull over and to make the necessary adjustments. It's hard to lead from the back.
Yep. Yeah. Some other answers: highest first aid and rescue certified. Certified, I don't put over experience myself, but I think again, rescue. All boats should have a level of equipment. Last boat with a strong guide. I'd like second boat with a strong guide. That's a good one. Second boat with a strong guide. That's not a bad spot. Last boat with the second safest, most experienced boater with qualifications. Good answer. You just don't always have. Yeah. It's also, who's the second most experienced boater. Like, if you and I went, I would claim I'm the most experienced boater. You'd claim you're the most experienced boater. Who's gonna break the tie? Like, sometimes you have 5 experienced boaters, or you have 2 experienced and 3 not. Who is that person? You don't always order those.
Oh, and then I think there's a difference between, like, okay, Zach, let's say we're on a trip with someone like, someone who's an ER doctor, who's also a guy. Well, we're the more experienced at running the river, but clearly if there's a first aid situation, we're going to be like, dude, yeah, you're way more qualified than we are. And so I think those are 2 different things too. The sweep gear and the first aid kit aren't necessarily going in the same boat. Like,
Here's an answer. I like second boat with a strong guide. That's a good answer. I mean, I could go for that. Last boat was second safest, most experienced boat with qualifications. That's a really good answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Doesn't matter. Just make sure everybody knows where they are. It does kind of matter. It does. It's not that it doesn't matter. It does matter depending on your situation. If you have 13 boats, it's definitely going to be towards the back. If you have one trip leader who's really good and a bunch of bad boaters, it's probably going to be in their boat. So it doesn't matter somewhat. Let's move on. The primary duty of the trip leader is to Provide leadership for the guides and passengers. Did really well. All of the above won, but it's another trick question. The primary duty can only be one thing. I just put it all of the above in there just to see people reading the questions. And so if you only pick the primary duty means one, not all of them. And I think people agree it's providing leadership. The trip leader does all these things, but primarily providing leadership. You agree, Aaron?
Yeah, no, I think I actually like that question because I think some people think like a trip leader's job is to do all this stuff, and depending on your company, that might be true where you're
Yeah.
working, but the big thing is you're providing leadership. You're like you're not the one who's going to have to you should problem solve everything and take care of everything and do everything.
Yeah, and this is another good. Take accountability for the trip and have solutions for problems that keep people safe and trip smooth. Awesome answer. I love that one too. It's probably a better answer than provide leadership. The proper paddle raft command, turn the boat to the right. There's 11 people that straight up got it completely wrong. But and then a lot of people that say left forward right back is the only proper command. What do you think, Aaron?
Well, that's funny. That's interesting. Like if I were to say the proper command, I would argue right turn. I think it's up to the guide in a way, but
it's interesting because Aaron, Dougie was we talked about this in the podcast earlier. Dougie agreed. You and Dougie and I all learned the same style pretty much, which was right turn. Almost everybody I work with does left turn right back. So I think
right back. Yeah, but my problem with that is like we don't do that on the creek, and for a reason. And we don't do that. We didn't do that on the Fuda. Like you don't do that on hard rivers because it takes too long to say left back, right forward, right turn,
exactly.
go.
I totally agree.
Like, and it's just like, and then like you miss part of it. You just hear the left, and you don't hear the rest, and you're like, it's kind of loud or something like that. Well, is it left? It's best if all the commands. I have this really nice write up on paddle commands actually, Zach. You could read on my website.
Yeah, I'll make sure I link to it.
And I feel like I'm repeating it all. But.
Yeah, I'll make sure I'll link to it. So the answer is it's up to the guide. Like I don't think it matters that much. Let the guide choose what they love doing. Here, this is probably Dan's answer.
Can we go back? Can we go back one thing though? I think up to the guide has some problems though, and I think it's important. Like as a team of guides, it's best if you all use the same commands because if people have to switch from one raft to the other during the day, which does happen, you're like, these people are scared, these people are cold, whatever. You got to switch around. If everyone uses the same commands, it's a lot safer.
It makes sense. I get that. We do it on multi-day trips, like where guides switch day to day at the paddle boat. And hey, I got to reteach it. Like I know that Nico did it this way yesterday. Today we're gonna do right turn. But I'll just adapt it his way. I'll just I'll go, hey, what commands did Nico give you guys before? And I can adapt my commands. But I see what you're saying there. But I'm still gonna.
I'm surprised no one answered. You don't need to use turns. What was the Vlad answer?
Yeah. Well, Chris, who was on the podcast earlier, he's like, I don't do turns that much. Where my back, I need to do turns. I can't pry that much. I'll throw my back out. All right, here we go. The best throw bag for most rafting trips is, and 75 feet of Spectra 1. I'm going with the IRF answer, the longest rope you can accurately throw. What do you think here, Aaron?
I think both answers work, and this is I'm really copping out here on this one, but I like that attitude of the IRF answer of the longest rope you can accurately throw. Having said that, if you're carrying a Spectra line with the expectation that you can also use it for doing some sort of mechanical advantage, then if you have a 30-foot line, that's not gonna be long enough. And so having that.
Yeah, but Aaron, how often do you use a throwback for mechanical advantage? You usually you have to pull a safety line. You just can't. Oh. It's not realistic.
Oh, we've done it.
You've done it, but 75 feet gets you nowhere. Like that's like
on creek trips we've done it. But the other thing, Zach, I'll say is like you have to have the right throw bags, and most companies have those swaggy throw bags that aren't Spectra one that you don't want to be.
So my answer a year ago is 75 feet of any 3/8 inch rope. I'm a huge fan of just any 3/8 inch rope. I like that diameter because it's a good diameter to pull. I don't see the advantage of Spectra because I'm not using Spectra throw bags for Z rigs whatever, and I don't see the advantage of strong throw bags because.
Don't you? How often have you had more than like two people pulling on a throw bag that's to a raft in the middle of the river?
Twice.
Yeah, that's the problem. That you throw a throwback and then you start pulling it off, and you get like 5 people on there. All of a sudden, you're going to overload the rope.
No, 5 people can still pull on 3/8. It's not. I don't think the loads are
What's
that.
what's that? What's the load on 3/8? It's
I
not
can't
like maybe
remember.
900
It's
pounds, maybe
you're
maybe
not
900,
gonna you're not gonna
maybe not,
break. Yeah, I
maybe
don't see this.
900, and then you make a knot in it, and the knot takes it down a third.
No,
You're down to 600 pounds.
it doesn't do a
Five
third.
big dudes can put 600 pounds of pole easily on the rope.
It's not rope efficiency isn't a third. It's more like 70%. So you keep 70%
I
of
know
your.
you. Yeah, I said you lose a third.
Okay. Anyway.
It was just 66%, Zach. It's
Okay.
about the same.
All right. This is okay. This is contentious. I get it. I'm just gonna make the point. I like the IRF answer, the longest rope you can actually throw. I see the value for other things. This is kind of an it's depends question. See what Aggregate said. You should oractus and carry a 75-inch rope for rescue always and a short rope. I think this guy was drunk actually. There's no way a sober person wrote this. Short taupe. I don't know. I can't even read that. 50 to 75 feet of floating rope. That's a good answer. The one that fits the river you're operating on. Absolutely. Like that makes sense. I might choose one differently. Totally changes the environment. We do Pine Creek trips. Okay, this is gonna get long. 50 feet of floating half-inch line. It's definitely not. Half-inch is a bit thick, and 50 feet doesn't do much. I'll add wall wet. I don't know what that means. Depends on the river. Yep. 75 feet of 3/8 poly tracer, high value. Yeah, I mean that's an all-around good rope. 75 feet of 3/8. You can't go wrong with 75 feet of 3/8. I believe.
So Zach, here's a more important question.
Yeah.
Then like what's throwback? Where do you store your throwback?
I think the IRF standard is waist belt on a guide. I come from a background of tying it to the boat.
Where would you tie it if you tied it on your boat?
On it, like some sort of inside D-ring or strap somewhere inside the boat.
In the front of the raft, in the back of the boat,
with near the guide, yeah, in the back. I don't want to guess touching the throw bag, and a lot of throw bags are hand entrapments, so I don't need more. Like a lot of them have big loops, so I don't want to put a hand entrapment near where the guests are.
Yeah, I think that's a key part though, is keep having it inside your boat too. Like in general, I'd say there's certain times to have it on the outside of the boat, yes, but that's really rare, a high volume type of thing. Most places, if it's rocky, low volume, you want it on the inside of your boat so that it doesn't catch a rock and get ripped off. Seen that happen, or it gets loose and starts floating down behind you and snags on the rock. Just seems like having it back near where you are. Last question. Do
Yeah.
you leave the end of the little loop out of the bag so it's easier to find the end?
No, I don't even knot in the end of my ropes.
You don't even leave a knot. So you don't even do a knot. But you know, people do the knot and they put the little loop out the end so they can find it really easily. I think that's another. I think there's a lot of sketchy throwback practices out there.
Yeah, for sure. So we could get into throwbacks forever. So that's the quiz. I just finished this version 2 of this quiz. It has twice as many questions. I cleaned up some of the different questions, made them a little bit more succinct. So I'm going to upload that this afternoon, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes below on this video. And if you have questions, comments, as always, like add them in the show notes. And yeah, see you in the next episode.